First of all, I just want to start off by saying Kahalayim, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakadash. And I want to give double honors to the great millstone, prophets, elders, apostles, and teachers that taught me this gospel. But also, I want to I also want to mention other Akim out there that are not in the great millstone, but they come with the same spirit and the same beliefs, and they're coming with the name of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Okay, and a big shalom to all the Akim out there that believe in this gospel. The topic of today is going to be fishing. We're fishing for the elect to be sealed, for those 144,000 and the 1/3. But the 144,000, that's that number. Once it gets sealed, it's going to be a wrap. So let's go to Luke 5:1, the first disciples. And it came to pass that as the people pressed upon him to hear the word of Yahweh, he stood by the lake of Gennesaret and saw two ships standing by the lake. But the fishermen, Salakia, were gone out of them and were washing their nets. And he entered into one of the ships, which was Simon's, and prayed him that he would thrust out a little from the land. And he sat down and taught the people out of the ship. Now, when he had left speaking, he said unto Simon, launch out into the deep, and let down your nets for a draught. And Simon answering said unto him, Master, we have toiled all night, and have taken nothing. Nevertheless, at thy word I will let down the net. And when they had this done, they enclosed a great multitude of fishes, and their net brake. And they beckoned unto their partners were in other ship that they should come and help them. And they came and filled both the ships, so that they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Yahushai's knees, saying, Depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Yahweh. For he was astonished, and all that were with him, at the draught of the fishes which they had taken. And so was also James and John, the sons of Zebedee, Zebedee, which were partners with Simon. And Yahushua said unto Simon, Fear not, from henceforth thou shalt catch men. And when they had brought their ships to land, they forsook all and followed him. So when it says men, I remember one of the brothers saying, one of the Akim, that it can also be women that run into this gospel. But by the law, I was corrected, and they told me that they were saying that basically we are not supposed to be teaching a woman that has a husband. The husband should be teaching her. So yeah. So, but if it's like a woman that is like run into us, or like things like that, and they ask, we can sincerely tell them, because I see the brothers do that too, when the Akim's out there, and there's videos of this where a woman will walk up to the Akim, and they ask, but we not approaching them, because they could have a husband, because this is a holy thing, this gospel, this truth, we want to walk in it, so when he's told, but in that scripture right there where he says, Luke 5:10, and so was also James and John, the sons of Zebedee, which were partners with Simon. And Yahushua said unto Simon, Fear not, from henceforth thou shalt catch men. It's talking about waking up the souls, the Israelites, the nation of Israel. So that's what it's about. Let me go to some scriptures here. Okay. So basically, what we're doing is we're just trying to fish for the elect, And when you go fishing, you use different styles, Sometimes, and there's different styles in this gospel, right, on how to fish. As long as we're spreading the word, some of the Akim, they like to fish the same spot. That's just, that's just their lot. They like to fish the same spot, and they're gonna cast out in that same spot, and they're gonna wait and be patient, to catch something. Now, you got brothers that like to travel. They're outdoorsy. What do? They preach on them streets. And they travel to different cities. They'll get an airplane and they'll fly to different cities to preach the gospel. You know, and that's because the Most High Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, has put the spirit in these Akim to do that. To get to that level. But it's a different level for the brothers, the Akim that are going to different cities, the ones that are actually, you see 5, 7 of them in a group and they're preaching on the streets. That's a different level of fisherman. That's like being an elite fisherman. You know, a learning fisherman is fishing, but he's fishing like the way I'm fishing. I'm fishing from the bank. I'm fishing the same spot. I'm not in a boat. I'm not driving the boat. I'm just chilling and fishing from here because I'm still learning and there's still so much to learn. So this thing is patience. This is gonna take some patience. I'm realizing that this gospel is gonna take patience and works, of course, and a lot of faith. You know, and sometimes when you're fishing, you gotta strategize. Sometimes you gotta change the lure. You got to change the color of the lure, the swim bait, or the jerk bait. When you toss it out there, you might throw a little bit of sardine in there. The sardine ain't hitting. What you gonna do? You're gonna put some night crawlers on that hook. I'm just using symbolism. When it comes down to this gospel. All right, let's read some scriptures. So look, let's go right here. Let's go to Luke 15:7. There will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who do not need to repent. So yeah, it's the heavens rejoice, if we're able to, save one soul through this gospel. Well, at the end of the day, the one that saves is Yahweh, Hashem Yahweh Shai. That's gonna do the sealing. He chooses who's gonna be in the book of life. So if he chooses one of the elect, you know, that basically says that the heavens rejoice. It's a beautiful thing. You know, and who are we fishing for? Who are we fishing for? We're fishing for the nation of Israel, the 12 tribes of Israel. From the southern kingdom, from the tribe of Judah, all the way down to the tribe of Issachar, the northern kingdom, and the the people that are Israelites, but they're foreign Israelites scattered through the four corners of the earth, and some of them look like the other heathen nations, but their father lineage, it goes back to Jacob's seed, and you can tell this by the Spirit, how they move and how they are, if they understand this gospel and they cleave to it, if they want to learn it, if they're being sincere about it, because you got, people that are Israelites and even foreign Israelites, they'll stumble on this word and they don't believe it. They look at it like funny, and what do? They scoff and they mock and they talk shit, you know. But yeah, how about Shimei Awashai sees that, and that's a very dark place to be, because the Great Millstone, they got the light, and also all the other groups out there that come in the same spirit, they got the light too, that accord with the Great Millstone, like I would call it like an alliance, that's what I would call it. Okay, so let's go to 13, Matthew 13:47. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a net that was cast into the sea and gathered of every kind. Matthew 13:48, which when it was full, they drew to shore and sat down and gathered the good into vessels, but cast the bad away. So yeah, they, let's just say, when a fisherman throws a net, sometimes he'll catch a catfish, or he'll catch a shrimp. He'll catch some shrimp, a crawfish. We know that those foods are an abomination. So what do? We throw it back into the river. We're not gonna eat catfish. It has no scales. It has no, it's like the pig of the sea. We're not supposed to eat it. And the crawfish and the shrimp, those are insects of the sea, and the Holy Bible tells us not to eat that in the chapter of Leviticus. But I need to make a video on that. Um, so we move in a spiritual way. So when we cast that net, sometimes we'll catch a Edomite or a Elamite or and we can catch them by accident too. You know what I mean? Because we could think, oh yeah, this one is a jig, and that can happen, But that's why we got to test the spirit. And when that happens, what we gonna do? We're gonna throw it back into the river. That's what we're gonna do. Okay, so let's go to James 1:1. James, a servant of Yahweh and of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai Mashiach, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greeting. So that's the big bulk, okay? But most of the Israelites are gonna be in Great Babylon. This is where his jewels are at, from the tribe of Judah all the way down to Issachar. And then we got the foreign Israelites. And when I say foreign Israelites, I'm saying, when I say they look like the other nations of people, I'm talking about like coming up to like a speckled bird. And you can find those Israelites in Europe. You can find them in Asia. Islands like the Philippines, Cambodia, Vietnam. You know, parts where the heathen dwell. We can find those. Those are foreign Israelites. But they come back to their power. You know, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The power of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, which is the nation of Israel. You know. Okay, so let's go to this one right here. John 10:27. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. John 10:28. And I give unto them eternal life, and they shall never perish, neither shall any man pluck them out of my hand. John 10:29. My Father which gave them me is greater than all, and no man is able to pluck them out of my Father's hand. So yeah, basically his sheep hear his voice, and we're gonna follow him. And how do we follow him? By following instruction of the great millstone, the teachers and the prophets, and the elders. We listen to them, and they correct us if we fall off, and we're not supposed to get upset about it. We're supposed to agree with it, and we're supposed to change the mistake that we've done, you know. And sometimes in this flesh, it's hard because it's like we think that we are, you know, and then we just forget or whatnot, because we're battling this flesh, you know. But when we mess up, we can write on a piece of paper, you know. Um, you know, I interrupted the class, just little things like that. You write on a piece of paper. I talked over the Ak, and then you go back and you go, why did I do that, and you examine yourself, and when the Ak is teaching you, you tell yourself, okay, I'm gonna stay quiet, I'm gonna stay silent, just little things like that, that you change about yourself, and if a Ak tells you, hey man, you ain't supposed to be a drunk, you ain't supposed to be smoke any of that, you're supposed to take it that's basically brotherly love, brethren, because he's telling, he's looking after you, because the wages of sin are death, and that's in the scriptures. Okay, so let's go to let's go to this one right here. Behold, this is Jeremiah 16:16. Behold, I will send for many fishers, saith Yahweh, and they shall fish them. And after will I send for many hunters, and they shall hunt them from every mountain and every hill, and out of the holes of the rocks. So yeah, right now we are just fishing, but when we are beamed into those chariots, you know, we're gonna be given new bodies, immortal bodies, and that's when we're gonna have spiritual powers, physical powers, and we're gonna become hunters, and that's in the scriptures. That's when Yahweh Shai returns with his huge chariot, which you guys call it a UFO, a so-called UFO, but it's actually a chariot, and it's gonna cover the skies, and he's gonna come with a bunch of chariot angels, and these angels are gonna be they're gonna be spitting fire, laser beams, laser beams at the Edomites and the 2/3 and the other nations, that don't align with this gospel, So we don't want to be one of those, we want to be sealed, delivered, and redeemed. Okay. I'm going to end it with Mark 6:11. And whosoever shall not receive you, nor hear you, when ye depart thence, shake off the dust under your feet for a testimony against them. Verily I say unto you, it shall be more tolerable for Sodom and Gomorrah in the day of judgment than for that city. So, if you run into somebody that, let's just say you fishing, you get some messages on there, you get some hate messages, or you get some arguing messages, we're not going to waste our time going back and forth, with these individuals that don't believe. We're going to just ignore them, and we're going to just tell them, okay, just goodbye, have a good day, you know. Um, through the spirit, sometimes we can get mad, and some of the awkward, would tell them, get out of here, you don't know shit, get out of here, and we express ourselves, and for the people that say, oh, why these Akim cussing, we're not breaking the law by cussing, How Hashem and how Shai gave us emotions, and we're passionate about this gospel, so we express ourselves, that's all, it's not cussing, it's just an emotion that we use if we get upset, if they come at us the wrong way, or if they approach us. Let's just say, yeah, you're walking, people for some reason find out who you are, and they come up to you and they start telling you, blah 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 blah, you don't know the gospel, blah 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 blah, you just, you're gonna just, tell them to leave, get out of here, and you're gonna what? You're gonna depart, and you're gonna shake off the dust under your feet for a testimony against them. That's what we're gonna do. All right, I want to end it with Kahalayim Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakadash.